Hey guys, the tabletop industry feels more crowded every single year. There's the new hotness. Every time you turn around, someone's promoting a new game and they're all telling you got to get it, but they don't tell you really what's the substance of the game. This makes it really challenging for a board game designer. They have to ask the question, how do you make your games stand out from all the noise? Welcome to episode 180 of Meeple to Meeple. Every game starts with an idea, as we all know, but turning the idea into something that people gather around a table to play is an entirely different challenge. Today, I'm talking with someone who has been navigating that journey through publishing game design and building a company that wants to leave its own mark on the hobby. Joining me today is Alan Wallat, the founder of Games. That is how you say it. He said it's so there you go. We're diving into the realities of publishing games, the lessons learned along the way, the excitement and the stress of bringing new ideas and new titles to gamers, and what it takes to stand out in today's crowded tabletop market. So grab your favorite beverage, pull up a chair, or pull over on the side of the road if you're listening in the car. And let's bridge the table between creators and players. Alan, welcome to Meeple. How are you?
Very good. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
What a phenomenal intro. Holy moly. That is incredible.
It's true though, right? Like there's a lot of titles out there and you got to somehow manage to stand out, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Board games are an ever expanding hobby. So there's lots of stuff out there, but I can't remember who I heard it from. It's almost like the dawn of the softback paper book. Is it the not a hardcover book,
Paperback.
paperback?
Paperback books. Yeah.
Yeah. So when that happened, books became way more accessible. You could kind of fit
Yeah.
them in your pocket, and suddenly people were reading books just once, as an experience. And I find myself playing loads of games now, just the once, and then maybe a year later I'll come back to it and go, "Oh yeah, I've played that before,"
Yeah.
and I'll play it
Yeah.
again.
It's interesting you say that. I quite literally before we recorded, I was on the phone with some friends who I hadn't spoken to in a couple of years, and we were just catching up. And one of my friends was talking about how he lives in New York City, and he was talking about trying to go to restaurants in New York. It's like he feels like going to a restaurant's like a one night stand. You go there, you have a great meal, and then you never go back because there's so many restaurants. They're constantly popping up. And I made the comment, I was like, board game collecting is really similar to that, right? You get all this promo and FOMO
Hmm.
online, and you buy a game and you play it once and then it doesn't hit your table again, right? I think that's the challenge all gamers, designers, publishers, I think we're all facing right now, is how to deal with that reality, right?
Yeah, I mean, on the flip side, I
Hmm.
would say yes, there are these like incredible pop-up experiences from the restaurants and things like that. There's just similar to that. There's loads of pop-up indie publishers and things like that. But the experiences those create, that could be someone's favorite memory.
True.
And for when I was thinking about my favorite games, in preparation for this podcast, I kind of realized that my favorite games, yes, they had quite a fair amount to do with the game itself, but it was like what memories they created. And so even if your game is a flash in the pan, like that flash in the pan could be someone's favorite game and they could play it for weeks at a time. And then when they're, 40 years old, 60 years old, just hark back to those times. Like that's kind of how I got inspired by board games was looking back at my childhood and going like, gosh, I absolutely loved that holiday in Germany with my dad and my three brothers.
Yeah.
This was pre-internet,
Right.
there was no computer connected to my grandmother's like little house in the sticks and kind of in this countryside. And my dad came home one day with a box and it first it was Catan. We played that. And then after that was La Città or La Città. Couldn't tell you who it's designed by, but that was an absolutely phenomenal 2-week holiday where we just sat at the table after dinner every day, like just trying to win.
Isn't that why we do that, to replicate those memories and
Yeah.
recapture those moments, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like,
What do you remember La Cita?
mhm.
Do you remember the game itself? Because 'Cause I'm not familiar with that title at all.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you whether it's still in print. Likely
Right,
not. I imagine it could have been an Italian designer, but that might have just been the theming.
right.
So it came from that traditional, what was popular in the 90s was big, relatively big boxes that had this kind of medieval aesthetic, like quite clean paintings,
Sure.
not Renaissance, but somewhat whimsical. And the game was a city builder. So I think the pronunciation was La Città, but we always
La
called it La
Cita.
Città because we didn't speak Italian.
Sure, I mean,
Yeah,
that's what you do, right? As a
yeah.
kid, that's yeah.
So I think my dad bought the German version, and later we found an English version. So he would translate like the cards and stuff for us.
Yeah.
It was a great way to yeah, we had family jokes about certain cards because they pronounce like really funny. My brothers and I, by the way, grew up in the UK, so that's why. Yeah. So this was a city builder
Mm,
uh, where you had to manage a population and grow your city. What was fascinating about it was points were your people. So if you couldn't feed them, you would lose your people, i.e. your points.
okay.
And your city could grow by getting migrants from your opponent's players' cities. How they did this was through something called the Voice of the People, which was a deck of cards with three types. It was education, culture, or health.
Interesting.
And all you had to do was build the right buildings that corresponded to it provided if it was a fountain or a bathhouse, it would provide health. If it was a schoolhouse, it would provide education. If it was like statues and colosseums, culture. So that year, you never knew what there were four cards face down, one of them face up, and it gives you an indication as that year what the voice of the people, what they wanted. So it could be education that year or culture. And if you had built the correct things and you did your card counting correctly, you knew what was more likely to come up. So you had to manage your resources in order to build that. And then if you, there, were- you could be too successful. You could be so if you had loads of migrants,
Yeah.
well, you didn't have enough food to feed them. So so it was absolutely phenomenal game and super replayable because you could turn the mountains over and flip them and shuffle them as tiles. So every board state played differently, just as Catan. Yeah,
Wow, that is an amazing description of a game. Like, I wanna play now. I
it's
wanna
really
play that.
good.
That
It's
sounds
really
really
good.
cool.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward a little bit because this is your childhood, this story you just
Mhm.
told. Fast forward a little bit. Were there any games that growing up that were real favorites of yours that you just
Yeah.
that
So
that did hit the table regularly?
yeah, it's really interesting. So games. only really hit the table, like board games, on holidays
Okay.
because we went to places where there was no internet or I mean, we had Game Boys and things like that, so we
Right.
would play, like, link cables in the car, that kind of stuff. But to explain beforehand, I think my grandmothers on both sides of the family were gamers. They just wouldn't
Okay.
have said that they were gamers. They played cards, like, with us every evening. You know, sometimes they read us a bedtime story, but sometimes we'd just play cards, like rummy or not necessarily poker, but my grandmother called it Big Two. Yeah, some great games, and that probably gave us the media literacy to access board games later,
Sure.
if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So, after these holidays, I think that was like teenage years. I went to university and I met some other people who had similar interests. And one particular game that I played a lot of was Arkham Horror, the board
Hmm.
game. So I've never played Arkham Horror, the card game, and I hear very, very good things. But Arkham Horror, the board game, was like some 2-3 hour like long cooperative game where
Yeah.
you're trying to based in H.P. Lovecraft's
Right.
mythos, and that's where I first heard about H.P. Lovecraft, and kind of fell in love with the short stories that he'd written and things like that. So that hit the table quite a lot at university.
You and I were talking just before the recording, when we were getting ready. We were talking about some tabletop role playing and
Hmm.
kind of our styles that we prefer. Arkham Horror, it allowed for players to have a little fun with the game and do a little bit of theater of the mind's eye
Yes.
role playing. Did you take advantage of that when you were playing Arkham, or was it just pushing chits around the board and trying to close portals?
I think we very much tried to win the game, but it's a brilliant like game because if you're not au fait with like RPGs, it's almost like a stepping stone, and
Yeah.
you begin to learn, like you read out the little cards, you roll a dice, there's a thematic introduction to what terrible thing you've just been sucked through a portal into the dreamlands, like, well, and you're like, oh my god, it definitely fills the mind with like crazy ideas, which then helps you later down the line to experiences to draw from with RPGs that are looser in structure.
Very true. Very true indeed. Yeah. So at that point, when you begin university, did you have any plans or dreams of becoming a game designer yourself?
Absolutely not. I so what's really funny is I I had that it just didn't compute that people were behind the games. Like how does it if you read a book or you watch a movie, you don't see how the sausage is made, so you kind of think it's like magic. Especially well, when you're a kid, especially.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as you get older, you kind of realize, oh my god, like someone made this. Like what? That's crazy. So when I went to university, I had no idea that people made games. I didn't know that you could do this. Looking back, I had a very, very creative mind, and I thought engineering was going to be about making stuff. It is, but my expectations were slightly different. So engineering is about making things do stuff.
Right.
What what I was actually searching for and didn't realize was I wanted to make worlds that do stuff emotionally for people. Um, and so I would often joke, I joined the Creative Writing Society at university and wrote short stories and things like that. And I'd often joke that like engineering was my backup plan after being an author. Like if it didn't work out, I'll just be an engineer. And my friends told me, "You're in the wrong degree."
Yeah.
And so it took me a while to graduate. Yeah, it took me a while to get through it. But what I realized is I gravitated towards games, game design, and engineering because it's systems thinking. It wasn't like I totally disliked engineering. It just wasn't what I expected. And so that broad analysis, systems thinking, and honing into attention to detail and how that one small thing can affect the whole thing, it's just, it's addictive, like for my brain. And the fact that games can influence people's emotions and create worlds, it just kind of clicked. Like during COVID, I was working sort of in the engineering field of procurement, so getting things from A to B, and COVID, Brexit, and Christmas hit all at the same time when I started this job. It was like it's quite isolating, and I think a lot of people around that time were thinking like, what am I doing if I'm at home abstracted from reality? People had time to think and question what it was they were doing. At least that's what happened for me. So I thought back to my happiest moments, and I was like, well, maybe I should do something that I like. And I was like, okay, well, what do I like? What were some of my happiest moments as a kid? I found this. It was really serendipitous. I found an audio book whilst I was browsing the internet, procrastinating from work. It's like the neuroscience of self discipline, and it had me introspect. It's like what self discipline is not a thing, it's something that arises from something you really like passionately want to do. So ask yourself these questions. What do you want to do? And you'll be internally motivated towards it. So I thought back to my childhood moments of playing Snap before bed with my grandmothers, or Rummy, and the holidays in Germany and playing board games. And I was like, okay, if I go through life, I might as well at least have tried to design a game.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
and because of my nature, the systems thinking, I just fell in love with it almost instantly.
That's an incredible story. That's truly remarkable. I thank you. I don't know what to say. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's
Oh, what?
I like that so much. You made me think about 2 weeks ago, I had neuroscientist Gail Wermis on my show.
Mhm. Whoa.
She's got a game that's on Kickstarter right now. So if you guys haven't listened to that episode, go back and listen. It's called Synaptic Symphony, and it's all about emotional maturity and building resiliency. And
Wow.
it's a cooperative game where the board is the brain, and you're in the 4 quadrants, and you're trying to gain skills so that you can connect the neurons to the 4 quadrants of the brain while facing an event deck. So you flip a card over, and it's like you're facing this major emotional event. Now, they're not always traumatic, but I was just thinking about how you were connecting all these things about yourself, and you wanted to build worlds, you wanted emotional connection, but you wanted to build things, and you just, I don't know, you brought it all together. COVID did some really good things. I know COVID was a bad time for all of us,
Yeah. 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 Exactly.
but I think lockdown during COVID's bad, but the
Mhm.
lockdown did you a world of good.
For sure. It was a really weird time. One thing I noticed is I feel 2 years younger than I actually am.
That is so precise. 2 years.
Yeah, yeah. It's really weird. When let's say you go on a hike, you measure the distance that you've traveled and how far you've come by physical landmarks. When you travel through time, you subconsciously measure it through like temporal landmarks like marriages, Christmas, holidays, these kinds of things. Lockdown was like being in the middle of an ocean with not even sure of the passing of time. There are no landmarks to measure
Mm,
things with.
so
So
true.
it was just like, I don't know, like a weird void of time.
Yeah, the year seemed I remember we were well into 2021 and we felt like it was because like lockdown happened here in March of 2020 and
Mm.
we were like, "It is March 283rd," right? Because the month never ended for so long,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
you're
yeah, yeah,
right.
exactly.
It definitely felt that way. So, you come to these conclusions during COVID,
Mhm.
you're evaluating your position, you're evaluating your job, your life, your desires, you're putting things together, putting it in perspective, you're reflecting on your past, and at what point did you decide, "I'm gonna be a board game designer, and I'm gonna do it myself, and I'm gonna create my own studio?"
Yeah, okay.
'Cause that's a big
So
decision.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I stayed in my job for a couple of years because, well, you need finances to live. That's just sensible. And this was a hobby at the time. It was something I was excited about and it was giving me purpose. I just didn't realize how much it would grow. And one thing happened. My boss at work was going to move back to Japan. Um, and they wanted to promote me to a slightly higher position.
Okay.
And something happened in my brain was like, I don't want it. I don't want the like extra
Yeah.
responsibility. This is not right for me. And I'd been going to Playtest UK in London. There's an absolutely phenomenal network of brilliant designers and playtesters as well. I'd been going to that and bringing a couple games and getting like, it's quite nice. Obviously, I was internally motivated, but there was a fair bit of external validation from other designers like, yeah, this game has legs, keep going with it, that kind of stuff. And when I was like, okay, well, I don't want this job, what do I want? And so I basically made the decision. The choice for me, it became really simple suddenly. I was like, I could be I could not make enough money. I could stay in this job and not make enough money to buy a house and be unhappy. Or I could not make enough money to buy a house, do board games, and be happy. Because the financial situation in London is so crazy for housing and
Right.
things like that, the
Yeah.
decision was easy for me. Okay, well, I'll go for the happiness route rather than the money. And that is something that I have to be extremely aware of my privileges because my I live at home with my family and not everyone can do that. I don't have like I pay a bit of rent, but I don't pay a massive mortgage. I don't have commitments to children and things like that. So I was at a point in my life where I could make that decision with kind of no strings attached. I was like, if I go for this, I can go for it all in. So I built my life around the Friday playtesting group here in London just so I could go every week. And then I got a part time job as a chef to help pay the bills. That allowed me to just commit as much time to, well, it was a hobby, but is that becoming a career?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's kind of that chapter. I just kept going and turning up. And I noticed some people might call themselves an aspiring games designer, but you'd never and other people might call themselves like an aspiring writer or an aspiring filmmaker. But if you're doing it, like you are it already. It doesn't matter if you haven't got a film on the silver screen. If you're making a film, you're a filmmaker. If you're cooking at home, you're a chef. You don't need someone to tell you that you're this thing. So yeah, I kind of became a board game designer because I fell in love with the process. And I would still be doing it if I wasn't, receiving the external validation of like getting games signed.
Yeah. So this leads us to the inevitable conclusion that has become War of the Toads,
Yes.
right? Tell us a little bit about the game and your inspiration for it.
So, War of the Toads is a tiny little card game. It's an 18 card game. Fits in your pocket, and it's more tactical than anything. Tactics as opposed to strategy. Strategy, you go in with a plan. Tactics, you adapt on the fly to what you have. It's War of the Toads is a card game about capturing your opponent's samurai toads as hostages in battle. You and your opponent have an identical set of cards, so there's loads of counterplay, like mind games and bluffing. The inspiration for that game came from Tassimasi, an 18 card game published by Button Shy, designed by Elizabeth Hargrave. And one of my friends, after the playtesting group, showed me the game. So, hey, do you want to stay and play this quick little game? I was like, sure. Tassimasi is this brilliant, brilliant I split, you choose mechanic, a game that's basically based on one mechanic and a bit of set collection. And it offers so much opportunity for bluffing and deception and coyness. And I was just blown away by the format as well. Yeah, how is it possible that you can have such an intriguing game in such a small package? And I was like, I want to make that. You know, I want to make something like that. And as with a lot of game design, for me, that spark sits in my subconscious for ages. And I'll be churning through it, like in my daydreams, maybe if I'm a little bit distracted, or if I'm doing a task that doesn't require much mental activity. There's like washing the dishes, ideas will pop up.
Sure.
And one day, my partner's brother went to Italy, and he came back with a deck of cards as a gift. It was from a place I think called Palio, where they do like horse racing or some kind of tournaments, and each district of the city competes. It took me a while to actually open up the deck. And when I did, I found something really weird. The cards were marked. It was a standard like 52 card deck, but
Yeah.
you could tell by looking at the backs which ones were red cards, so the diamonds and the hearts, and which
Sure.
one were clubs and spades. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. Like,
Yeah.
is that a mistake? That plus Tassimasi combined in my head with which is this might be odd, but Stratego,
Yeah.
where higher numbers beat lower numbers, and so I just kind of made. I was like, oh, I realized, okay, like 18 cards. That means you must have numbers from 1 to 8, but then you've got to include a bomb of some kind. And all of those things came together, and I was like, boom, like I think there's a
Hmm.
game here. Um, and it was just higher beats lower with a special card, and that was where it came from. And I ever since then I've been slowly, taking my time to hone it into something that is a really sort of fun experience. And I'm really glad that I have taken my time because there's been so many other designers and playtesters input into the game that I'm very, very pleased with it. And I also took it to UK Games Expo this year, and a lot of other people were pleased with it as well. I was like, whoa, it found its audience, and I was like, okay, let's plow ahead.
Absolutely. So talk to me about the theme.
Okay.
Toads, samurai toads.
Yes.
You know,
So
where you could have ended up with any concept, but you landed on that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a really good question. So I lived in Japan for a year after engineering, teaching English, and I made a ton of friends there. And I have very, very fond memories of playing board games with some guys out there. Mark Edmund, if you're listening, and Mario as well. We played a hell of a lot of Seven Wonders. It was phenomenal. And basically, I love Japanese artwork. I love Japanese culture. I love the language as well. And I've always thought frogs are kind of cool, but there's a particular style of artwork from Japan, which is these wood block prints of samurai. And there's a couple of them. Yes, sure, there's samurai and kabuki actors and geisha and various things. And there's a couple that are literally just pure whimsy. Some 18th century or even prior to that, master artist decided to paint frogs as samurai. Uh, and they have these little reed stalks and they're like riding each other into battle and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, well, why not? And why are frogs so prominent in Japanese culture? Well, the word for frog is kaeru. The ancient word is kawazu, but kaeru is a modern word for frog, or I think toad has a slightly different word. That means to return. It's a homonym for frog. Frog also means to return, which is if you return somewhat, bon voyage, like have a good trip, good luck. So the symbol of a frog is good fortune. So I think that's why frogs are, in various. It is fairly prominent in Japanese culture. But I saw
Interesting.
those paintings and I was like, okay, great, frogs, samurai frogs. There is also a small mechanic in the game that is that you could argue is reminiscent of frogs and toads. You can kind of leapfrog someone else in points at various states. And there's like an angry calm thing, and there's a famous frog painting of a very like upset toad.
Yeah. So I'm reminded of a famous quote by G.K. Chesterton, who said, "I'm sorry I wrote you a 16-page letter. I didn't have time to write you a 2-page letter,"
Yeah,
because it's so hard to write concisely in a short amount of time, right?
100%.
So similarly, trying to design a card game that captures all these thematic and tactical elements that you've just outlined in 18 cards.
Hmm.
So it's got to be concise. The gameplay has to be tight. The mechanics have to be perfect, right? Was there ever a moment where you were like, I made a terrible mistake and you go,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah, loads of them. But
tell me about that.
I'll tell you, mistakes don't shy away from mistakes. Mistakes are how you learn. Like,
Yes.
and sometimes someone might tell you you've made a mistake, but there's something valuable in that, and you might have to put it to the test. Honestly, I can tell you so much about mistakes, but I was playtesting the game fairly early on, and this was kind of before each toad had a special ability, and so it was just a numbers thing with the bomb. Like in Stratego, you can defuse it with a 4 or something.
Right. Right.
Um,
Right. That sounds right.
yeah, I playtested it, and one of the playtesters said, "This isn't a game." I was like, "What do you mean?" Like, I was like, what?" It got me thinking, like, what is a game? It was like, "This isn't a game. This is just random." And I was like, "Okay, fair enough." And he was like, "I can predict this, this, and this, and this about the outcome of the game." And I was like, "Wow, like, okay, he's obviously got a strong mind, much stronger than me. Like, there's something here that I should listen to." And I was like, "Can you describe more?" And he was like, "Well, it's just like the game War." And I was like, "What's War?" And he's like, "Well, okay, so War is you take a 52 card deck, you split it in half, you give it, one to one player, and you have the other. You just reveal cards the identical time, simultaneously, I mean, higher beats lower. And I was like, yeah, I think I didn't say this out loud. I was like, yeah, I think I played that with my grandmother. It was great as like a 7-year-old. So I was like, okay,
Sure.
let's test this again. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. Let's play War, because I still had the deck from my brother-in-law. And and we played, and we revealed a card, and we revealed a card, and we revealed a card. And then so he won, I won, he won, I won. And then there were like 4 cards in a row. It was a tie. It was a tie. It was a tie. And we both went like, what? Like, so, okay, sure. Like, it's not a game in his mind because he has a certain bias to a particular type of game. But this experience is fun regardless, you know? And I was kind of still somewhat troubled. It's like, okay, well, I must know what this game is so that I can build it into what it should be and cater to the correct audience. So at that time, I was kind of a guinea pig from this spin out from Queen Mary University London called Tabletop R&D, who are doing computational analysis on games using not like generative AI or that kind of form, but the deep blue where you program in rules into a computer and it uses Monte Carlo tree search to assess
Right.
certain
Right.
paths, like the best chess bot in the world type programming. So thankfully, James Goodman from that team was happy enough to implement a small, like 18 card game and just test it for me to see if there was a game. And my definition of the game was if you have a higher computational budget for the bot to play the game, will it do better? I.e., is there skill in this game?
Okay.
Because that was the guy's criticism, which is totally valid. It's like there's no skill in this game. Sure, it could be a fun experience like we had with War, but there was no skill. It's like, is there skill in the game? And sure enough, out pops the data. Yes, if you have a higher computational budget, you will win against weaker opponents. So there is skill in the game, and that gave me like plenty of confidence. But also, it was a great like lesson, and that's kind of like I have to thank that guy a lot because it also gave me the name of the game, like War of the Toads.
There it is. That's incredible. I did not know that that's where that question was going to lead to that tidbit. So
Great question.
that
I
is
mean,
that is
all of your
really good.
questions and your podcast is phenomenal. It's just so
Thank
interesting.
you.
Like there's so
Thank you.
many interesting people.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I strive to try to cultivate a diverse community of guests and to provide a safe, inclusive space. So I really work hard on that. So thank you so much
I can
for
feel it.
that. So I'm curious about when there was a moment where you knew you had it, like you knew this game was you were done, right? Like this was hot, and you were ready to pull the trigger and get it published or publish it yourself, as it were. Talk to me a little bit about that.
So basically, when I started my board game design journey, and in the book on neuroscience of self-discipline, it had you write a dream, and that is what you're going to be internally motivated towards. And my dream was to receive something in the post board game that I had done all myself. So during my design career, I've been extremely fortunate to have a game signed by a, 2 games signed by a company. The second one I can't talk about, but just yet, but at some point.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's coming soon.
Coming soon. These games are published by other companies, so I haven't done the artwork. I haven't done the all of that stuff, and I always wanted to move into games design full time. And so the best way to try and do that was through a Kickstarter to learn the ins and outs of the entire board game process. How the sausage is made. so that someone can hire me. So if there's someone out there, please hire me. And War of the Toads was basically a very low risk, small thing that I could try and accomplish by myself. And there's not too many cards to illustrate. So I taught myself illustration, and I basically needed a project to realize my dreams. When I first started designing War of the Toads, I think that's coming up to 3 years ago. And whether it was like going to be a big success or not, it didn't really bother me. It was more like I wanted to have something that I had done myself. And it's only this year, in end of May, in June, 3 years after I started designing it, that I took it to UK Games Expo with my own little booth, and my partner and some friends helped me to demo the game to the public at UK Games Expo. I've been doing loads of playtesting with the other designers, and they're giving me feedback, and they said that they
Sure, yeah.
liked it. But it's a different thing when 50,000 people enter a space, and you have to like compete for their attention and say like,
Mhm.
"Hey, why don't you? Are you interested in trying this game?" I had a phenomenal expo. I was absolutely shattered because from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m., the demo tables were filled. I had 3 copies of the game, so 6 people were playing at the same time, and a little bar table with a tiny little plushy Jellycat toad to like encourage people to
Yep,
stop and say, "Oh, that's cute."
yep.
Um, I was like, "Oh my god, people like the game! Like, what the hell?" I was kind of blown away by the response, and I gave away these tiny little pin badges to people. I know you can't see if you're listening on Spotify or other podcast hosts, but I was giving a little pin badge out to people who demoed the game and left a review on Board Game Geek.
Imma need you to send me one of those.
Absolutely, yeah,
Yes, yes, I'm gonna need one of I am crazy for pin badges. Love them, love
great. Okay,
My my wife
yeah,
has my wife has made banners that we hang on our wall, and they look like banners from Gloomhaven, and we
okay,
put all of our pin badges on, so I'm gonna have to get one of those. We'll talk
nice.
offline.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But that's cool. So you were giving these out at the demo table.
Yeah, I was giving these out, and after the 3 days, well, after each day there'd be a few reviews. I'd go home, and there'd be more reviews, and then more reviews. And by the end of the expo, I had about 51 reviews from people, and the average rating came to 8.5 out of 10. And I was like,
Nice.
"Oh my god!" Like, I was stunned that people liked it that much. Because it's hard to judge your own stuff. Like,
So hard. That is such a difficult thing. No, I get it. I get it. I wanna ask you I ask everyone about this, and this is more for me than it is for the podcast, but I do it every time. How easy was it for you to be vulnerable and open up your game to strangers to playtest?
that's a good question. For me, so for War of the Toads, it was relatively easy because I had done it in little stepping stones, little by little, showcasing it to designer after designer at the playtest groups. And because I've been a designer for several years, I have shown some absolute stinkers to people, and that's fine. Like, that's how you learn. It's actually, funnily enough, if you go through life making the perfect right decisions, you're going to be terrified. Like, it's going to make you kind of afraid to ever make
Yeah.
a mistake, uh, because you don't know what's on the other side of that mistake. But if you make a mistake with, like, you make a crap game, you go to a playtest group, people tell you it's crap, and then you come back again and again and again, you realize you survive, still alive, and eventually you learn that's that's a problem in this part. I can actually improve that part of the game. This person's giving me this kind of. Obviously, you want an inclusive group who's really there to
Absolutely.
like help you learn. That's extremely important, and I'm very very fortunate to have such a great playtesting group in London. But yeah, don't be afraid of your mistakes, you know?
Mhm. Yep. So, did you get plugged into the board game proto hype group? Is that Are you a
Yes.
part of that group?
Yes.
Talk talk to me about how did you find out about them, and what is that experience like?
So the board game proto hype group, there's Evan Wilcox, who's a fantastic designer, but I met Mike from Huff No More, and they've done Sakana Stack and Tricky Landing, which are some brilliant games. Funny story, Mike is possibly best friends with my brother's friend. It's a weird connection. My brother is a DJ. His brother, I don't know. Somehow we had some odd
Right.
connection. We met at a playtesting group, and he was like, "Oh, you should join this group." And Mike, for me, he demoed 2 years ago, I think, Sakana Stack. It might have been, no, I think it was a couple of years ago. Sakana Stack for the first time at UK Games Expo. I went to his stand, and his stand was kind of the inspiration. I felt like he did everything right for his Kickstarter. A really, really brilliant, like, it's just fun, a fun game, fun company, and really, really clever, like, little marketing thing. He had flyers with a little magnet. It's him and his wife with the date of the Kickstarter launch. So you get your flyer. Normally, people forget about them, but this, because it had a magnet, you could just stick it on your fridge, and it's just telling you a reminder every single day. This Kickstarter is coming up. So
Yeah.
he's definitely the benchmark for me.
So, what if you could go back 3 years, whatever, and give advice to yourself when you were
Mm.
just starting out, right?
Hmm.
What one piece of advice would you give yourself? Avoid
This,
this, do this, whatever.
yeah, this is so hard because I know you asked this question to other designers, and if I'm genuinely like taking that question at face value, like what would I have told myself now?
Yeah,
I'd just keep going with it, because I feel like I am the designer I am today because of the mistakes that I made and the choices that I've made.
sure.
Like, um, so what I would say is, like, if you're afraid of putting your game out there, if you're an aspiring designer, I say aspiring in inverted commas,
Right.
you're a designer, give it your best shot. If I think designers or people who are in creative fields are quite doubtful of their own abilities because they haven't done it before. There's load you your taste is killer. You know what's great, and there's this kind of gap between what you might be able to produce and what you want it to be like, and that's a huge level of doubt on yourself. So people who are quite intelligent might reasonably believe their own doubt because they can analyze. It's probably not going to be very good. But if you want to be a true skeptic and take doubt to its full level, you must doubt itself and give yourself the opportunity to test it. See if your doubt is correct or incorrect. Give it a shot. Yeah.
And those are inspiring words. You must doubt itself.
Yeah.
That's
Otherwise, because
Yeah,
it's a blind spot,
it totally is. Yeah. I think it's interesting. I think the same thing is said. Franklin Roosevelt, President of the United States, in his first inaugural address said that the only thing we had to fear was fear itself, right?
yeah, yeah, for
Nameless
sure.
unreasoning, which paralyzes our efforts to move forward. So the only thing you gotta be afraid of is fear itself, and the only thing you should doubt is doubt itself.
Mhm.
Get that out of there. Get that out of there. Well, Alan, thank you so much. Thank you
Thank
for
you
your
very much.
time. Thank you. I appreciate this. Tell everyone where they can find War of the Toads, where they can find you on the socials, all the things.
Sure. So, yeah, firstly, thank you, PJ, so much for having me. It's been an
Absolutely.
absolutely phenomenal conversation, and I really get the sense that it's like your podcast is not just super interesting, super inclusive, and very, very welcoming space. And like, it's that is the like epitome of the board game industry. Like, people are just so friendly, so lovely. So I think you're doing a great job. So where can you find me?
Yes.
My name is Alan Wallat. That's Wallet spelled Wallat. But so if you Google me, stuff will come up. But I'm also on Instagram as games. It's dot games on Instagram.
Yep.
And if you
Are
type
you
in
on,
War of the Toads board game, I'm
are
sure it'll
you
come up.
on Twitch and TikTok and YouTube? Are you on all the other
N-
channels?
No, no, I'm not. I just have an Instagram. I have a website, which is rgames.co.uk.
Grin, that's
Yeah,
argames.co.uk.
games.co.uk. Yeah, but on Instagram, I kind of show the board game design process. So kind of how the sausage is made, or at least,
Yeah.
how I go about it, various things, and the development of War of the Toads. And there's plenty more stuff to come. So if you're interested in that stuff, give me a follow.
Yep. Yeah. So be sure to check it out. That's AAAR dot games on
Yeah,
Instagram.
it's
Guys,
funny that it's funny the first time you're like, games, and then you have to repeat it over and over again.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Then it becomes less fun.
Less fun for me, but fun for everyone else.
Exactly. Absolutely. So, guys, thanks for listening. As always, make sure you like and subscribe. Please post comments. We have to feed the algorithm. It's a monster.
Mhm.
It is a monster and it must be fed. My question for you this week, posting in the comments, is if you were to start your own game studio, what would you call it? So
Yeah,
put that in the comments. As
that's a
always,
good question.
be kind to each other and play more games.
Be excellent to each other.